Good evening. Tonight we're going to review the new McCartney 3 album. I just got it in the mail this afternoon. I already uploaded a short video on the song Lavatory Lil. I don't know if you haven't heard it. It might not make a lot of sense to you, but I wanted to review this album. I've ordered it. I actually wanted to review it the day it came out, and I ordered it quite a couple weeks ago to make sure it got here, and it was late. So I don't think that's Paul's fault. But by the way, this is Guitars and Music channel. We discuss guitar, all things related to guitars and guitar. We discuss great music like tonight. And sometimes we review gear, and I also play. I have videos on here where I play. But I got this album. I hope you'll subscribe. I've got 243 subscribers. When I get to 300, I'm going to do a video on the keys to my success as a YouTuber. But this is a good album. First, this is a vinyl copy. It's got a nice picture on the back and the track listing. On the inside, it's just like an old album. Like, I think this is the first vinyl album I've bought in a long time. You get some nice photographs. There's Paul on a horse. And on the inside, that's the old school. There you get a vinyl album and the lyrics. So I paid about $26 for this album. And quite frankly, I've been listening to it on YouTube. The official uploads are all on YouTube. But it's nice to have a vinyl copy that I don't buy. I guess I'm like a lot of people. When I think about it, I don't buy albums that much anymore. I hope Paul gets a little something when we all stream his music. But I just mostly listen to it on YouTube. But I listen to everything on YouTube. One thing, just let me preface it. He's got some pretty clever little videos on YouTube. All the songs are on YouTube. You can just listen to them. But a couple of them have nice videos. And I really like the way they did the videos on, like, When Winter Comes and Get Deep Down, Here Come the Pretty Boys, with lyrics. It's kind of a clever way that they incorporated the lyrics and some images. Some very simple videos, but kind of well done. And I was wondering how they did it, actually. But this is a good album. Now, when this came out, on Facebook and on Amazon, I read a lot of people that were saying, no offense to Paul, I love Paul, but he needs to retire. His voice is shot, and I'm not that impressed with this album. I don't think that was even a significant. I mean, that wasn't the majority of the comments, but it was definitely some of the comments were along those lines. This is a good album. Let me just preface it by saying this is a good album. And Paul McCartney is 78, and he started music in 1958. One of my favorite quotes, I think it's in Rolling Stone, when Egypt Station came out, somebody said, take a pen and write down the name of everybody you can think of that was writing great songs in 1958 and are still writing them in 2018. Take a minute, and when you're done, the name on your list is Paul McCartney. That's it. So I'm not trying to. This is an important album. Paul McCartney is not just any old person. Everything he does at this stage in his life is important. I would say he's like Irving Berlin or Stephen Foster. All those songs are important and they're part of a life's work. So this is really good. Now, he did this album and it's very good. And he did it all. Almost all this was done by himself, which is impressive. He started doing this, I guess, when the COVID shut down. He had some other things that were canceled, and so he was kind of holed up. And, of course, he's got a nice studio, I guess, where he was. So he started working on it, and pretty soon he did a song or two, and pretty soon he decided to turn it into an album. The rest is history, as they say, McCartney 3. I think it's a good album. It's the third album that he's done where he plays all the instruments. The first was his first solo album, McCartney 1, which was in 1970. Of course, that has, like, Maybe I'm Amazed on it. The second was McCartney 2, I think, in 1980. And that was kind of a little bit more techno pop. It has that song Coming Up. John Lennon died right after that came out, but apparently he told Paul that was a good song. That was kind of nice. Maybe they were getting along a little better by that time. And John had some kind words to say about it. And this is his third album where he's done. It's pretty much a solo effort. I really like it. They're all good songs on here. Couple standouts: "Long-Tailed Winter Bird." That's a neat song with acoustic, and he reprises that on the last track, which a lot of people are saying is the best track on the album. It's called "When Winter Comes," and it's a very nice little tune. And actually, believe it or not, that one was recorded and written in 1992. So some people are saying you can kind of hear the difference in Paul's voice or whatever. But that "When Winter Comes" is a very nice little tune. Very reminiscent of, I think, "I'll Follow the Sun." In fact, there's even a line in there, "We'll Find the Sun," which I thought was sort of an allusion to that great old Beatles song, which is a Paul McCartney song, "Tomorrow May Rain, So I'll Follow the Sun." "Find My Way," that's a good one. You see that on the video. "Pretty Boys." "Pretty Boys" is kind of an interesting song. Some of these songs, it's not too clear what he's talking about, but here come the pretty boys working for the squire. You can look, but you better not touch. I like the way he's got that Liverpool accent. It's a good song. "Women and Wives," "Lavatory Lil." I posted a video just a little while ago on "Lavatory Lil." To me, that was one of the most interesting songs on the album. First of all, it's a good song. It sounds like it could have been on the White Album. Second of all, it's some people who he's talking about. It's kind of a pretty scathing cut down song to someone in particular. And in my video, I said I thought at least some elements of it sounded a lot like Heather Mills, his second wife. Now, others have said that's not the case. I think Paul McCartney denied it was the case. But I noticed quite a few elements of that song, "Lavatory Lil," that I thought sounded like an allusion to Heather Mills, his second wife, who walked off with $50 million after 4 years of marriage. I think I said in that video, I'd marry Paul McCartney for $50 million. I'd figure out a way to make it work, you know. $50 million, that's $34,000 a day. It's a pretty good deal. "Sliding," that's pretty good. That's got some slide guitar in it. And I think that one actually has a guest guitar on it. It's one of the few. Now, "Deep, Deep Feelings," the track on here, I think it's one of the ones that he meant to be one of the more important tracks, about 8 minutes long. I like it. Some people have said they didn't like it. I saw quite a few reviews on YouTube that people didn't like it. I wanted to say a little bit about that in a minute, because I think it fits into sort of a larger discussion of this. All these songs are good. You just have to remember he's doing them all himself, including playing the drums and everything. And that's hard to do for a lot of reasons. Not just it's hard to do, you know, just it is hard to do. You have to be able to play all those different instruments. So that just shows how talented McCartney is. He's a multi-instrumentalist. But it's also hard to do in sort of less tangible ways, you know, just sort of making it sound exciting and everything. So sometimes a great song, when you're playing it all by yourself and one track at a time, you get a certain outcome that's different than if you had 5 people in the room and a live drummer. So, but I like "Deep, Deep Feeling," and I think it's a cool song. It's very creative. "The Kiss of Venus," interesting song. "Seize the Day" is kind of Beatlesque. Reminded me a little bit of that old Beatles sound. "Deep Down's kind of a party song, kind of to me kind of a late 70s vibe. Want to get deep down, party every night, you know. It's kind of a party song, really. 78-year-old man still likes to get out there and party. And then "Winter Bird" and When Winter Comes, those are really nice. That "When Winter Comes" is, I think, as years go by, and Paul, we all get older, that's going to be one of the ones people remember from the McCartney catalog. It's one of those extra nice songs. It kind of reminds me of "Mull of Kintyre," or, like I said, "I'll Follow the Sun." You know, some of those just kind of nice, even "Blackbird," kind of simple acoustic songs. So I think this is a very good album. I just wanted to respond a little bit to some of the criticism I saw. First of all, Paul's voice, his voice has dropped. I don't think it's, it's not this ominous thing where he can't sing anymore, but his voice has definitely dropped. And people can be quite cruel about that. I don't think it doesn't sound bad at all, but I think as a practical matter, some of the songs might have sounded better up a step and a half, two steps, maybe in a full third, So I noticed that on Pretty Boys. I think Pretty Boys is a very catchy tune. It's very, and quite a few other ones too. That Lavatory Lil, but particularly I noticed it on Pretty Boys. Find My Way too. His voice, I think that he did it kind of low, and I think if they had raised it up a little bit, it would have. I think it would have sounded a lot like people. It might have sounded better to people. They don't sound bad, but I just think as a practical matter, he lowered those keys a lot, or wrote them in kind of lower keys that are comfortable for his voice. And so one of the things, I write songs, and I look at these as songs, not as just consumer products. They are. It is a consumer product, yes, but they're also songs. And you just have to imagine these are very well-written songs. They're great McCartney songs, and you could hear other people do them other ways. And he did them all himself. So this is the way he did them this time, which in 2020 when he was locked down in COVID. And I think they're great, and I think that makes them kind of very cool, very special. But you need to listen to them with that in mind. I think some of those songs maybe in a different situation could have been raised up a key a little bit. The other thing I wanted to say is when you play by yourself, he probably used a click track on a lot of those. They use click tracks all the time now. I'm not a big fan of click tracks, right? Which is kind of like a metronome. I've done quite a little bit of recording, and they use them all the time. And a lot of great stuff's done with click tracks, but they do, if you're not careful, they do tend to give it that kind of metronome feel. And even worse is a drum machine. So the one thing I noticed about that deep, deep feeling is it started out at one key in dynamic, and it just was 8 minutes of that same key. It's kind of hypnotic. That some people might find that kind of cool. It sounds kind of techno music. But I think if you had a live drummer and some other people in there, you just get a natural, more human flow of the music. Maybe even some tempo changes. People cut down tempo changes. You look at classical music; their tempo changes, slowed down a little bit. That's why they have orchestra conductors, so you're not just all playing to a grid. That's the whole point of having a conductor in an orchestra, and also dynamic. So that one, I thought maybe it was a drum machine, because it just had that kind of relentless beat. It was all, and he was kind of playing along to it, which is kind of cool. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of music's been done like that. In fact, you hardly hear live drummers. But I thought this is a good song, and I could hear it being done in a cool way with a band and a live drummer, and all the more sort of human interaction, I think would have enlivened the song some. But I think it's a great song. And I think it's cool that what we have is the 2020 version, which is McCartney doing it himself. And I think that's awesome. So I don't have too much to say about it. I think it's a good album. I think you're looking at a man that's been in music 60 years. I don't think we all need to just, sort of give him the halo effect and just, not discuss his music like we would anybody else's. But I also think we look at this in the overall arc of his life, and it's a real achievement. This is a good album for a guy that's 78. I mean, my mother's in an assisted living, and there are people in there that are in their 70s, and have trouble walking across the room. So this is an amazing album, and the songwriting is good, the singing is good. He did it all himself. That's real talent, And I think it would have been cool if he'd had a band, and a live band, maybe a couple beers and, a couple pretty girls, or something. But he did it all himself in a COVID lockdown, and I think it sort of reflects that, and that makes it kind of a cool thing for a 2020 album. I think it's done. The album's done quite well. So my hat's off to Paul McCartney. I think this album is quite an achievement, and I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I have the vinyl copy, even though it's, today people don't even buy music anymore. But I bought a copy to have, and I think it's a very fine album, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't got a chance, listen to it. And if you want to listen to the song Lavatory Lil. Read a little bit if you're not familiar with his divorce to Heather Mills, which happened, I think, in 2008, but they were married 4 years. Listen to the song Lavatory Lil, and then watch my video, and ask yourself if you think that song is about Heather Mills and the way she would was an amputation victim, and she wanted to keep a bedpan in the bed at night, and I guess, and it's sad, really, going to the bathroom when you have one leg is difficult, but it was a very acrimonious divorce, and I think that's what Lavatory Lil is about his second wife going to the bathroom with one leg. not a very appetizing or savory thing, and but like I said, $50 million. So that's a lot of money. Well, I hope you enjoy this album, and I'd recommend you get it. It's a good album by someone that's very great. I'm going to make this comparison, and I don't think it's unapt. Michelangelo. I don't think it's overblown to compare Paul McCartney to Michelangelo. I think he's as important to music of our time as Michelangelo was to art in the 16th century. And at the end of his life, Michelangelo did sculpting his whole life, and at the end of his life, he did some different kinds of things. The really fine detail that was in a lot of the stuff he did when he was 20, 25, which is a lot of the famous stuff, kind of like the Beatles and maybe the Wings. He didn't do that so much, but he sculpted right up, and I think he lived to be 85 or 89 maybe even, and he sculpted his whole life, and towards the end, things were kind of fuzzy, but some people like those statues that he did towards the end of his life better than the more famous ones he did when he was younger. There's a style, there's a mood. He's not so obsessed with the little details, and but he gives the idea of it, and I don't think that's a inappropriate comparison. McCartney, I think, is that good and that important to modern culture and the arts, and his music reflects someone that it's in a different time of life, but is still very vital and vibrant and creative, and at the top of his game at this point in his life. It's a different game, but he's still at the top of his game, and it's a very fine album. I recommend listening to it. I recommend buying it. Hats off to Sir Paul. Thank you. God bless you.